Okay, so our next guest was within 5 minutes of meeting him, I stood back and I said, wow, this is a very, very special guy. And I'm sure many of us in this room, if not all, can relate in one way or another how Rankin MacSween has touched our lives. It is an absolute honor for me to be introducing him this evening. Rankin, he lives and breathes this community. As president of New Dawn, the oldest community development corporation in Canada, Rankin and the teams he assembles remain fiercely proud of their independence, their ability and responsibility to speak freely and honestly about the challenges facing this community. Over his tenure of 35 years, he has established 17 businesses that today respond to the local needs in the fields of healthcare, education, real estate, and multi-million-dollar community economic development investment fund. These businesses employ more than 200 people and operate successfully without government support. Rankin is sought out and referenced by scholars, researchers, consultants, and other community organizations across North America for the unique business models of business and community leadership that New Dawn has articulated and embodied over the years. Previous to his time at New Dawn, Rankin was the founding director of Island Alternative Measures, now Island Community Justice, and the former chair of the Cape Breton branch of the Canadian Mental Health Association. He's lectured at CBU in sociology and criminology and has taught in the Community Economic Development Program, which is the MBA program at CBU. Elsewhere, he was the founding director of the Canadian Community Economic Development Network, a former director of the Vanier Institute of the Family, and a former director of the Canadian Church Council on Justice and Corrections. He has been recently inducted into the Cape Breton Business Hall of Fame, a partnership between Cape Breton University and the Sydney and Area Chamber of Commerce. And he's also been conferred the degree of a Doctorate of Letters by Cape Breton University Board of Governors. Born and raised in Boisdale, he continues to thrive there with his beautiful wife, Marie. So, when I met Rankin, I said, he is possibly the greatest listener I have ever met in my life. And it's now our turn to listen to what he has to say. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Rankin MacSween.
Well, look, thank you very much. Are we okay? Are we wired?
We got to put ourselves on there.
Maybe. Oh, I need one in your pocket there.
I think we can probably still all hear you.
Okay. Well, look, thank you very much, Michelle, for that lovely introduction. They told me that I should say to you at the beginning, this is not a political speech. That this is not, that's sort of behind us. And to be clear, you know that refrain, if nominated, I will not accept, and if elected, I will not serve. So that's sort of the position I'm taking on this. Well, but look, I want to tell you, there's a lot of, one of the lovely things about being here, if you'll just kind of let me do this, I mean, there's a lot of people here who worked in the campaign. This is not a political speech, but I haven't seen you since. So I just wanted to, I mean, part of what we carry around in our heart all the time is this incredible sense of gratitude, because it was an amazing group of people, and I'm delighted to see you here again. Some of you are ideas people, and I'm really delighted to see you as well too, and some of you are friends, and it's lovely to reconnect. Just one quick campaign story. when we were, it's interesting, you learn a lot, and one of the things we were learning as we got into the campaign is early on, people tell you about kind of what your vulnerabilities are and what you may be criticized for. So early on, within the first week, one of the things that they told us was that they may talk about my health, and they may as well talk about my age. And the health referred to, I'd had a heart attack back about 8 years ago, and so that didn't come up. My age did become a bit of an issue. So kind of we began to hear this in the first week of the campaign, this concern. By the second week in that campaign, the rumor was that I was in my late 60s. By the third week, I was somewhere between 70 and 75. And by the fourth week, I was heading for 80. So what kind of complicated it was that, I mean, I tend to look older than I really am. I'm one of the burdens I have, in a way. I mean, with every birthday my wife has, she looks more radiant and more beautiful. And then with every birthday I get more wrinkled. It's quite a burden that I, in fact, carry. I'm 61. Actually, I should tell you, as we're getting part of this age thing, George Boyd, who's here, he took it upon himself. He figured it was how I was dressing. So he began to advise me how to dress all during the campaign. It didn't work, though, eh? I think George may be responsible for the fact that I lost. The great thing about being 61 is what it means is I've worked in this development field here for 35 years or so. And to work in this community most of my adult life, it's really like being in a classroom. And so I've had this blessing of learning an awful lot. And one of the things that I've learned is that in this community there are certain rules. John Updike, the American author, one time he said that every community has rules. The rules are unspoken. And if you're born in the community and you grow up in the community, you know what they are. If you move in, at first you don't know them at all. It can take a long while to acquire them. But if you're born here, or whatever community you're born in, you can just know these. Kenzie McNeil, who's here, the songwriter. Kenzie McNeil one time told me a story about there's a rule here that has to do with driving. So, you know that, like in Nova Scotia, we have a handbook about, you know, how you're supposed to drive, what you do, what you don't do. But then we have this whole subset of rules here in Cape Breton. So one of them is, for example, when you come up to an intersection and it's busy, you know, so you're coming onto a slower intersection, you're going onto a busier one. Well, what the handbook says is you wait until there's a gap and then you merge. So in Cape Breton, we don't do it that way. We go up, we stop, we go up, and then what we do is there comes a point and we decide, I've waited long enough. And we just make a move. And then if there's another Cape Bretoner coming down that road, what they say to themselves is, oh, he or she, they must have waited long enough. Clearly the problem becomes if you're not from here and this person pulls out in front of you, right? Well, one of the other things about this community that I've witnessed is there are certain things that you don't talk about. There are certain things that you don't question or that you don't criticize. So growing up in Boysdale, I mean, one of the things that was pretty clear is we were Catholic, as was most of that community, and you did not question or criticize the church. Kind of when we kind of grew into adulthood and got into this development business, one of the things that was clear, unspoken but clear, was that you did not criticize or question the federal government. That was the case up to a couple of weeks ago anyway. It's quite an amazing, historic thing that's happening. I think that one of the other things that I think is rather remarkable in this community, it is remarkable that we live in a community where we're in this state of rapid decline. We're losing 1,000 people a year. We're losing the equivalent of the town of Lewisburg every year. And we don't talk about it. Or when we talk about it in a really kind of circumspect way. I think one of the, which is very, 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 very interesting. Now, when you don't kind of tell the truth, if you look at the literature, it's really interesting in families. If a family's in trouble, one of the things that's notable usually is the family. There's something going on in terms of there's some truth the family's not talking about. There's something that's being pushed to the side. So, for instance, when families are in therapy, it's all about sometimes trying to get someone in that family to kind of lead the way in talking about what it is the family doesn't want to talk about. And once you do that, and often it's interesting who will talk about it. Sometimes it's one of the children, sometimes it's the youngest child, and the family will just kind of follow the truth. Whoever starts, the family will follow. There's consultants who make an awful lot of money going from business to business, helping businesses talk about something that they don't want to talk about, helping the leadership in that business do that. Because again, the business gets stuck. So it's interesting when you've got this problem, what I see as a problem in a community, where there's something we're reluctant to talk about. I think part of what happened was when the public sector, when the province took over the steel plant and the federal government took over the coal mines, there was a change in the filter. Like the filter, when it was run by the private sector, there's a filter, a business filter. So it's all about whether it's making money or not making money or what those facts are related to business. When the public sector moves in, it's a different filter. It's a political filter. It has to do with saying what's acceptable, what will work politically. And I suspect what happened was, what we did as a community is we needed to survive, so we just adapted to that. So we began to figure out how to talk about our economy in a way that wasn't offensive to those we believe to be our political masters. So here we now live in a community that is in severe decline, that is declining faster than any other community in Canada. And we're kind of very careful about how we talk about what's happening. We talk about, in a very careful way, if at all, that we are dying. We are dying. One of the so where does that leave us? It's very depressing. Time to go home now. I think I think there's really three options we have. And one of those options we have is simply to do what we're doing now, which is sort of not speak of it. We're kind of alone with it. So it's sort of like we're each sort of like suffering alone with this. So we could just keep doing what we're doing. I think another option is to start to talk about it and to accept it. So it'd be like we could kind of put ourselves on palliative care. And we could plan for it, you know? Like we could map out what the decline is going to be, how many people is going to be, kind of just map out the contraction, like in a really sensible way. We could get it right down upon my soul to the point when the last one is here, and their instructions could be to turn the lights out, eh? One time, John Hugh Edwards said to me, John Hugh, who was associated with the Extension Department, there was something happened here, some hit we took, some blow we took as a community, and John Hugh said, it's almost like they really want us to leave. That's the way it seems to be. So he said, you know what we should do? We should get a white flag, and we could put it on a pole, and we'd march up to the causeway, and we'd wave it, and we'd say, okay, we surrender, we're prepared to move, but we all want to live together, eh? So we can have a strategy, something like that. It's some kind of orderly way about doing this, eh? The other option is we could talk about it, and we could decide that we want to do something about it. I think it's important, though, to understand. I mean, the problem is huge, eh? I mean, the challenge is absolutely huge. We have, according to my good friend Doug Leone, when you do the analysis in terms of what would need to happen, how we, to transform this situation, I'd say that the economy is about $2 billion now. On very approximate numbers. Suppose we were to double that. If we were to double that, if we were to be twice, if we had a GDP or GNP or whatever we're going to call it, twice as big as it is now, double it. We would then be poor like the state of Maine. That's the size of the challenge. This is not to be underestimated in terms of what's ahead of us. So how the world, so it can be overwhelming, eh? It can be quite overwhelming, the prospect of what we've got to do. One of the great privileges I had in my work in my life, and I think some of you here had the same experience, I visited the co-op, the Mondragon co-op, in the northern part of Spain, in the Basque region of Spain, which is an amazing story. So the Basques, I mean, where northern Spain is, they're in the mountains, eh? There's no airports, there's no access to the sea. The roads are quite challenging to get there. And so in the 1950s, they start creating this workers' co-op. So they now have hundreds of businesses, they have thousands and thousands and thousands of employees, and they have a bank in the center of it that's worth billions and billions of dollars. And as one old lady said, we have nothing. We have nothing except our brains. That's all we got. What has always been so remarkable to me, what inspires me always, is that when this community gets focused, when this community decides it wants to do something, when this community gets itself in gear, it is amazing what it accomplishes. The reason we have a university is because this community decided it would be so, against incredible odds, against incredible opposition. The reason this community has a regional hospital is because this community decided it would be so. The reason we got the harbor bridge is because this community decided it would be so. If we could find our voice on this issue, if we're ready to do that, if we're ready to talk about what the decline is, and that's not going to be easy to do. Do you know what's interesting? You know what it's like sometimes living here? Like what happens here is, as you know, you've been through this, you've all experienced this. Like usually, like from time to time, we have announcements, right? We have these announcements, and they're usually on Fridays or on the weekend. So they come in and they announce things, eh? So, and, but the metaphor for me, it's like we're living in a house that's on fire, eh? Like the house is burning, eh? We're a family living in a house that's on fire, and then they come in and they make an announcement about how to improve the house. So the announcement will be, we'll just pick anything. They'll say, well, we're gonna get new wallpaper. We're gonna got money here. We're gonna give you money for new wallpaper for the children's bedroom. And everybody claps, and it's wonderful. And then if you say, but listen, the house is burned. They'll say, shh. Be positive. Be positive. Don't you like the wallpaper? Aren't you happy with the wallpaper? There's an incredible, see this habit we have, eh? Of trying not to offend. I mean, it's deep ingrained. I mean, and people do things for good reasons. We did this for a good reason. We had to survive. So we put that kind of political filter on things and really try to make sure we don't piss them off, you know? Because maybe there's another little bag of money coming, eh? Two years ago, what was really interesting, when New Dawn got into this public dispute with ECBC, what was quite remarkable about that for me to experience, and maybe this was my imagination, but what my sense was, part of what happened, we created this incredible tension in the community. People were quite uncomfortable with this discussion, this disagreement going on. And part of, I think, what that discomfort was about is they saw New Dawn as putting this federal gift we had at risk. There was a fellow who wrote a letter in the midst of this to the Cape Breton Post, and he said, you know, we got to understand that Enterprise Cape Breton Corporation is really like having our own Department of Finance, eh? Right in dead center in the middle of the community. And we don't want to do anything to jeopardize that. So you got to understand, this is a very difficult thing to decide, that we're going to be quite frank about our circumstances and about our challenge. But the fact is, you can't confront your circumstances, you can't confront your challenge, eh? I mean, if somebody is an alcoholic, for good grief, you can't say, well, I think he's got a little drinking problem, you know? You can't get at it like that, eh? Like a little honesty is called for, eh? Like the truth is, we're dying, eh? We're dying. We got to say that. We got to face up to that. That's the only possibility we have of dealing with it, of turning it around. And once we face up to it, and once we deal with it, begin to deal with it, then we got to get organized. There's nobody coming to save us. If this is going to happen, we got to do it ourselves. But the good news is we are incredibly capable of doing that if we decide we want to do it. So this is like we've got 3 doors to go in, right? We go in door number 1. As a friend of mine says, we go in door number 1 and let her lie where Jesus flung her, eh? Like that's one option. Option 2 is, well, we'll just address it, but we'll just accept it, eh? We'll have a brand press conference that will announce, we've decided we're leaving, eh? We've decided we're giving up, eh? When we just want you to accommodate that. Or we go in door number 3 and we say, we're going to turn this around. We're going to come together like we never came together before. And we're going to turn this around. I vote for door number 3 myself. I think part of what this program has been about, this ideas program, is to some extent at New Dawn, it's sort of like, speaking for myself, I feel like I live in this schizophrenic world. Eh? On the one hand, there are many parts of this community where you experience the death, where you experience the dying. It is soul-sucking. It is just soul-sucking. There is another part of this community that is incredibly vibrant, that is incredibly alive, that is full of people who are doing fascinating things, who are full of passion, who could be doing them anywhere, but they've chosen to do it here in Cape Breton. And it is those people, it is you people, who've inspired that series that we do here. That's what's inspired it. Now the reality is, in terms of turning it around, I think this is up to us. And to some extent, I guess what this is about tonight, for me, I'm serious here. I am dead serious. My question is, and I hope we talk about this, where are you? Do you want to go in door number 1, or door number 2, or door number 3? And how do we begin to get at it? I want to read you something, if I can, as a way of closing. There's a quote that was credited to Nelson Mandela at his inauguration. It actually wasn't his. It's kind of one of those urban legends. The quote belongs to a lady by the name of Marianne Williamson. And here's what she said, and I think this, for me, the reason this is an important quote is it really speaks to how I see the good people of this community. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I? To be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous. Actually, who are you not to be these things? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure. We are all meant to shine, as children do. We are born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not just in some of us, it is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. We are liberated. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Thank you very much.
let's just think about that for a second. I'm going to step back and just kind of let that process. I have to anyway, so. Okay, so, all right. Rankin, wow. So,
How do we do that?
I have,
We go to the port summit?
I have two questions for Rankin. We can start off. In what way has your passion led you to this community, or why do you choose to live and live out your passions in this community?
Well, what some people, when people come to visit New Dawn, sometimes they'll say, "Well, how did you do this? Like, how did this strategy? How did you develop this strategy?" And it's really quite humbling to say, "Well, there really was no strategy. I mean, we just kind of like fumbled from one thing to the other." And I do think when I look at New Dawn, I mean, I do think what is striking about that organization, and I think striking about a lot of things in this community, I mean, what that was all about was a group of people who came together and who followed a longing in their heart to try to make things a little better. So what happened was the reason I came home here, and I came home for a year. I was away, I came home for 1 year, and I never got out yet. I'm still here. One thing led to another, and there has been this longing in my heart that has taken root and taken hold. And I think over and over again, I've just been humbled by this community and its people, and the fact that it has survived. And the fact that it is just so loaded with possibility and potential. So it's sort of been, it hasn't been one grand kind of decision, it's sort of been a series of things that happened that certainly have continued to sustain me and continue to fill me with energy about this community and what we could do.
Okay, thank you. And second question is, what do you feel is needed for your dreams to be, and your vision to be realized?
We all got to go through door number 3. That's what we got to do. I think the, I think part of our challenge has been, as a community, is I think there have been a lot of traumas, a lot of hard times, a lot of disappointments. And I think after a while, that kind of does eat away at a community's confidence. And I do think, for a whole lot of reasons, there is this belief system that someone else is going to come, needs to come, and save us. I think that just got ingrained, again, for a lot of good reasons. You know that's not the case. So it's really a matter, I think, as a community, of finding the confidence. It's confidence we need to open up door number 3. That's what I think the challenge is.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to be opening up the floor. So who's first?